Most people believe control happens through force, through orders, through restrictions, through visible power. But the strongest forms of control rarely look like control, because they don't need to stop you. They only need to redirect you. And once your attention moves, everything else follows. Your choices, your fears, your priorities, even your sense of self. The strange part is that most people never notice it happening, because they are looking exactly where they were told to look, and not where the mechanism actually is. For thousands of years, power has understood something simple. Human beings can only focus on so much at once. Attention is finite. Every moment spent looking at one thing is a moment not spent looking at something else. Every outrage, every distraction, every urgent crisis, every carefully selected conflict creates a blind spot somewhere else. And blind spots are valuable, sometimes more valuable than obedience itself, because people who obey may eventually resist. But people who never notice never need to be controlled directly. They control themselves. History is filled with examples. Entire populations arguing over symbols, while larger transformations happened quietly in the background. Communities fighting each other, while systems expanded around them. Generations obsessed with personalities, while structures became permanent. The names changed, the technology changed, the language changed, but the pattern remained. Attention moved. Power consolidated. Attention moved again. Power consolidated again. Most people imagine influence as something dramatic, a speech, a law, a command, the threat. But influence often works through subtraction, not by showing you something, by keeping something out of view. A stage magician understands this. The audience watches one hand. The trick happens with the other. The audience isn't blind. They're simply occupied. The same principle appears everywhere. Not because everyone is part of some coordinated plan, but because human attention has always been predictable. And predictable things can be guided. The more emotionally charged something becomes, the harder it is to examine. The stronger the reaction, the narrower the field of vision. Fear does this. Anger does this. Tribal loyalty does this. Vanity does this. People begin protecting narratives instead of investigating them, defending positions instead of examining assumptions. This is why some of the most powerful structures in human history were never hidden. They stood in plain sight, visible every day, accepted by almost everyone, because visibility is not the same thing as awareness. Something can be seen constantly and still remain unnoticed. A city walks over its foundations every day. Few people think about what lies beneath. A society operates inside systems every day. Few people stop to examine them. Eventually, familiarity creates blindness. The structure becomes part of the landscape, not questioned, not challenged, not even observed, simply assumed. And assumptions are remarkably durable, especially when entire generations inherit them. This is where many people misunderstand power. They imagine it as something possessed by individuals. A ruler, a leader, a wealthy family, a famous institution. But individuals come and go. What often survives is the structure itself, the incentives, the habits, the expectations, the invisible architecture that teaches people how to behave. Long after its creators are gone, a person dies. The pattern remains. A generation disappears. The pattern remains. New faces arrive. New language emerges. New conflicts dominate attention. Yet the deeper mechanism continues operating underneath it all. Quietly, patiently, almost unnoticed. After enough time, people stop noticing what is missing. They stop asking why certain possibilities never appear, why some choices feel realistic, while others feel impossible, why entire directions of thought seem unavailable, not forbidden, simply absent. This is one of the most effective forms of influence ever created, because a person can feel completely free while moving inside boundaries they never noticed. The cage no longer looks like a cage. It looks like reality, and reality rarely gets questioned. Most limits survive, not because they are enforced, but because they become normal. Every generation inherits assumptions, ways of seeing, ways of measuring success, ways of defining failure, ways of imagining the future. Most of these assumptions arrive without introduction. No one announces them. No one votes for them. They simply appear as common sense. And common sense can be one of the most effective disguises a structure ever wears. Once something becomes obvious, few people examine it. Once something becomes normal, few people investigate it. The structure disappears. Only its effects remain. People adapt to incentives they cannot see, respond to pressures they cannot name, protect ideas they never consciously chose, and defend systems they barely understand. Not because they are weak, not because they are foolish, but because this is how human beings navigate reality. No one has the time to question everything. No one can examine every assumption, which means some assumptions inevitably survive, year after year, generation after generation, untouched, unchallenged, invisible. Most people spend their lives reacting to events. Few spend time examining what determines which events receive attention. And that difference changes everything, because eventually a question appears. Not a complicated question, a simple one, the kind that quietly changes the way you look at the world. When everyone is looking here, what continues operating over there? If this felt familiar, subscribe. This channel is about seeing the structures that continue operating long after they become invisible. And if something became visible, continue here.